Try this again. Gratitude, Divines and Divinettes. Is Brie India. Coming on here to have a little conversation, discussion, general and open. Different things I'm going to be speaking about, especially self-worth. Not sure how long I'm going to be on here. My connection's bad, but I wanted to talk a little bit about self-worth. But before I do, I wanted to say, happy Mother's Day to all of the women who are mothers, who have mothers, people, men who have mothers as well. Sending you love and light and good vibes, good energy for the day, for the moment. Of course, even any hateful energy I'm sending to the fiery pits of even beneath the ocean, because we don't need that right now in the world. We need more love, more tranquility, more attunement. But yes, definitely happy Mother's Day. Happy blessed Mother's Day to you all for this weekend. To married mothers, to people in relationships, people who are co-parenting, all mothers, especially single mothers who are maybe doing it on their own, especially you. I know that it may not be easy at all times, but that is why you're going to always be blessed and favored for the due diligence that you have put into being a mother. And I wanted to take the time to mention that this year I was going to do a balloon or a feather. I'm not sure if I'm going to do balloons or feathers, but a balloon fly or a feather fly for myself as well, for I lost a child in 2017. And so I'm always allowing myself to embrace motherhood in any way that I can possible around this time of year. And to people and women who have a hard time bearing or carrying their children as well, your motherly love and touch is still needed in the world. So thank you so much for giving that to other people in ways that you can. And to men as well, for you have a mother. So happy Mother's Day to you too. And of course to my mother, my grandmother, the people and the women in my life who have been in my life thus far. I really appreciate you and I love you dearly. And moving forward, I'm also going to do I do an annual paint now. Paint and Peace is what I call it. So, or Piece of Peace, because that's what it's going to be. And I'm not going to do it this weekend like I intended to, most likely, but I am going to be journal drawing today while I'm just on live, just speaking about self-journeys and self-worth, as well as I'm still in my self-decluttering season. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about self-decluttering, as well as self-judgment. So self-worth, self-judgment, and self-decluttering is what I'm going to talk about specifically when it comes to self-journeys. And also, before I speak on that, I wanted to, I didn't know Mr. Kevin Samuels personally, but thank you. I didn't know Mr. Kevin Samuels personally, but I was made aware that he passed away. So I'm sending condolences as well to anyone who knew him personally, or even the people who looked up to him and the words that he spoke. I know not a lot of women really liked what he was saying, but a lot of men appreciated him coming out and being the male version of the Queen Ali that we weren't anticipating to have in our generation or in this era. To be honest, I'm speaking on it as well because I was on his show before, or his YouTube channel. I was on it before with him, and it was definitely an experience for me because I am a black woman with an attitude, yes, and I can be hard at hearing when I want to not listen. But I was listening, although I don't like his delivery. I appreciated some of the things he was saying because I like when somebody speaks the truth to me. So the fact that he was able and willing to not care about the feelings or the emotions of people when it came to just delivering whatever it was that he felt he needed to deliver. And a lot of times we can be hard-headed as women, so it needs to be heard in such a way where it's almost like it's demanded. I'm not excusing the way he was talking to me and calling me a bitch and going as far as that, but I am just speaking on the behalf of the simple fact that he said certain things such as, even if some of it wasn't even honest to me, I just felt like it still needed to be said and publicly heard, because there are people who know me personally and who know and recognize like how he was speaking to me wasn't necessarily based on him actually knowing who I was. It was based on his general perception of women, and possibly based on to some of his own experiences with women. As he was a man who had been divorced before, and he was a man who had a daughter. So at the end of the day, happy Mother's Day to the women in his life as well. And like I said, I send my condolences to his family and people who are connected to him in any way, shape, or form, and his platform in which he built before passing over. So, this is Dragon's Blood wrapped in some yellow lotus or yellow dandelion. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to leave that there, and blessed be. Now, I got my little color pens because I'm going to be doing a little drawing sketch. If you hear my sound bowls in the background, I like to play that sometimes, and I haven't in a while. I was going to do a moment of meditation on here tonight, but I just decided that I would speak on those 3 things that I mentioned about self-journeys, the part of self-journeys that I'm in, which is I'm still in my season of self-decluttering. I've been in this season for a little while now, honestly, because I've been taking my time with this cleansing. The self-decluttering portion of my self-journeys is something that I feel as though moving forward as I do this and this practice of self-journeys, I know I'm going to do it a lot because I like to be able to really analyze my life, like the process of my life so far. And when I say self-declutter, like I literally started with like things I've written, things I've held on to, items from places I've been. This incense smells so good. Items from places I've been, and different things that I was holding on to that were kind of like hindering me from thinking beyond where I am right now. So in trying to progress in life, there's nothing wrong with holding on to things that you cherish. It's nothing wrong with holding on to memories. I don't feel as though that's the issue. When I look at the past, I'm not looking at the past to dwell on it. I look at the past to embrace it, all of it, even the parts that I would like not to have happened, or the things that I feel as though were burdensome. And to tie into like the way that, Mr. Samuels and Queen Ali would speak, I feel like they were speaking on the behalf of what we all kind of analyze generational cycles and breaking them is, right? Because generational cycles aren't just connected to our family and our lineage. It's connected to our cultures and inabilities to merge, inabilities to think outside of the box and not be so bound to how things have gone for so long in history. Like history itself has its own generational curses attached to it, in which we as people, as we grow, we have the choice to stay bound to those things on the timelines before us, or we can think outside of the box and allow ourselves to use the remaining 90% of our brain to actually create new things. And when I say we're all creators, I'm not trying to trump the fact that or overlook the fact that there is an omnipotent, omnipresent, force, source, God, Allah, so many names we give to the most high being, the universe, the entity of entities that made us, the creation of creations, right? But if you think about creation, it all came from nothingness. So even though we are creators, we're all creating based on the things that are already here. So it's lazy to not decide to evolve through that and understand more of what's here so that we can build on it even more. And then a lot of people, I feel like, just don't choose to do that because they don't feel like they have a purpose for doing so, or they don't know their purpose here, right? So that's why self journeys is so important to me, because it is encompassing of the self-love, the self-care, the self-worth, and every other idea of the self is not about being just selfish. Because I feel like we should be selfish sometimes too. Selfish with your time and your energy sometimes is not a bad thing. I mean, you can make it seem like it is, but realistically, I still stand firm in the fact that we can preach love, self-love, unconditional love, treating others the way we want to be treated and so forth. But it's a must that all the things that we judge others to do or be towards others or even to themselves is something that we have to do for ourselves. Taking me to the third point of today's talk for me, which is self-judgment. So the self-journeys are meant to bring us back to ourselves, to remind ourselves of all the things that we want to see outside of ourselves so that we can build them by building ourselves up. I feel like unity is something that stems from us choosing to actually unify with ourselves, right? So another part of the self-decluttering, like I said, was just physical items. Definitely allow myself to give to charity in volunteer places and just give away items to places. And not in a way where I want someone to feel like they are not deserving of something that's brand new either. I don't like to necessarily give away my old items uncleaned. So I feel like if you're going to give away old clothes, actually clean them. Take them to the dry cleaners or the laundromat before you give them to a person or to a place that gives to people. If you're going to give away items, sometimes give away stuff that's not going to cost someone, or give it away for less than what you were anticipating or what you paid for. That's more, that's not really a charity, but it can be, because some people have something to give you for what you give them. But I just feel like when it comes to charity, it truly comes from not just me self-decluttering, but me deciding, instead of throwing this in the trash, somebody could possibly use this item. And we do recycle a lot of things in the world, believe it or not. So why not give to people, especially in a time where you're cleaning out your things? Clean your things before you give them away is what I'm saying. I know the places usually do that and stuff like that, but it's a thing with the energy that you carry on your things, and then you pass it along. So when it comes to self-decluttering, before I even give to charity, I cleanse the things that I'm releasing, and I cleanse it in a way where it's not left with my baggage, or it's not left with any burdensome energy that I had. And so the other thing that I do for self-decluttering is cleansing my we have a digital age thing going on right now, right? So I go through cleaning out my phone, my emails, and when I do that, I just do that because I don't need things from 10 years ago. Like, I don't need to make a brand new email to clean out what I have. So that's a part of self-decluttering too, is just cleaning out and making room for new things. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it also kind of helps me take myself back a little bit to certain things in my past and revisiting moments, whether it be pictures, like I said, emails from people, text messages, and even things that I didn't heal from. If I come across it and I see it, I'm like, it allows me to use that moment in time to heal from it, to revisit it, so that I can learn what the lesson was, if there was a lesson. And every lesson is not necessarily something bad or negative, because I noticed that a lot of lessons about love seem to be hard because I was missing the part of love that required me to have more of that for myself. And once you get to a point, or once I got to a point where I understood how I love myself and how to love myself and what I like to feel about loving myself and what kind of love I desire, it's almost like I designed that in my mind and in my mental, and I allowed that to be what manifested in my space. And when you allow disturbance in your life, it's like you have to at some point take responsibility for your part in what you allow in your life. And that even takes me back to relationships I've had, and why I chose to do celibacy is not because I'm trying to just jump on some type of bandwagon. I really wanted to see if I could be able to test myself to be strong enough to withstand giving my body away for what reasons I didn't even really understand purely or truly, as well as just really choosing to take my focus off of something that I didn't really need it to be on at the time, where I was trying to still manifest more life for myself. And in the time that I've been celibate, even though I had relapsed a couple of times after I had gotten a divorce, right? Realistically, I was still only attached to the person I had been last married to, because that's the person that I had gave myself to, unprotected. And I do view protection as a certain thing when it comes to giving our bodies away. And the other person that I had given myself to outside of that person, it was almost like because I had placed so much protection around my energy space, not just my body, but my energy space, I recognized that I just wasn't interested in, it wasn't that person. It was just, I wasn't interested in the act of it, because I was so intrigued by how much I could just literally give myself so much more when I was restricting myself from things that were taking up a lot of my time. So I'm not saying sex took up a lot of my time, but relationships take up time. Dating takes time. Having sex on a regular basis takes time. And it takes away from time that you can be investing in yourself. There are other things that can take away from your time too, other than that, which is why I'm abstinent and other things. Like I said, this year in July will be my 3rd year, literally going 3 years without being into the substance of alcohol. And I'm not saying like I was a crazy alcoholic or anything, but that was my substance that I went to. When in reality, once I took the time to take self journeys, I remembered who I was, and I went back to my childhood and I worked through those wounds. And when I did, I remembered the parts of me that were, not interested in smoking a cigarette when I was sad, and the parts of me that were not, or the parts of me that were not interested in drinking liquor or doing adult activities, or, when I was a child, I was really a child. And so I had allowed myself to be childlike in the midst of this celibacy journey, because it wasn't easy for me. Honestly, I don't know how anyone else feels, but for me trying it, it was hard, but it allowed me to really get focused on my life again, and where am I going? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And not necessarily saying that who I was married to was a bad person, or I was a bad person to him, or who I had, been pregnant by was a bad person. We were just living life. All of us were living life, and we still all are. But I realized that I needed to kind of raise my consciousness a lot more than where I was, because I was allowing myself to just kind of like vibrate on levels that were bare minimum of what I can reach in my capacity of my being. And when I allow myself to literally focus in on my creativity again, and I learned more about my spiritual centers, my chakras, and about my culture and my ancestry, my community, revamping and going back to my community and of where I was born, and then the community that I called a secondary home as well. And just being in places that I had been in before, and realizing and recognizing what I needed to let go of. Because what I needed to let go of, I was afraid to let go of. And I can say that honestly, because I was almost like trying to remember what I was holding on to places for. And it wasn't just places I would hold on to. It was memories. It was items. I mean, I had close to 100,000 emails in one of my email accounts. That's ridiculous. So that's what I mean by self-decluttering, like just going through things. I didn't go through all those emails. No, I literally let myself just clean things out, clean house. And now it's a thing where, I know everybody heard about spring cleaning. I let myself do that now. I started Self Journeys in 2018 officially on the books, but it's something that I've always been focused in on, is not just saying I was just always focused on myself, but I was always focused on trying to understand myself, because I wanted to be a good person to the people I've interacted with. I wanted to be good at what I was doing in my work life. I wanted to be competent and consciously aware of my actions when I'm doing things or when I'm making decisions. And it was important for me to take the time to just sit down and recognize the relationships I had and literally evaluate them. And I went through a period of self-evaluation before, where I was, which self-evaluation is actually a little different than self-judgment, because I feel like with self-judgment, I'm more critical. It's a time to be more critical to myself in ways where I can't be offended if someone else mentions it to me, because I've analyzed that about myself and I've agreed I can be impulsive. These are examples for me. I can be impulsive sometimes, or this is how I was, where I would make decisions irrationally. And mostly it was based on my feelings and my emotions, right? And my response would be in defense. Like, for example, in a relationship, I would want to defend the person that I'm with without recognizing their faults in the situation or their own, impulsion, like how they were impulsively making a decision without considering me or my feelings. And that's a part of self-love as well that matters, because even with unconditional love, you should still understand and recognize when a person outside of you may not care enough to consider the fact that you deserve the same respect that they would give to themselves. And it's enough love in this world to be able to say, okay, I have to walk away from a situation for myself and not be so concerned with how everyone else will look at you or how everyone else will judge it, because other people are going to have something to say about the decisions that you make. That's just naturally how we are as humans. We are judgmental people, but I feel like if we take more time to self-judge, that is something that would eliminate so much dictatorship on other people's actions. It would allow us to be more understanding of other people and their actions, and more aware of how to respond to it in ways where we're not being so offensive. And that's something as well where I needed to have a season of self-judgment, because I was pretty critical in response to people in certain situations, and not really aware of how I was speaking to these people. Even though my tone may not have been loud, it still came off sarcastic, or I wasn't being received properly. So that's something that in the time that I've been in my abstinence season and in my self-celibacy, I've actually taken the time to, with my meditations and with my walking meditation, my prayerful meditation, because I've gotten to a point where I don't just pray or meditate when I'm still anymore. I take the time to be as conscious as I can be on a regular basis, and not conscious on the woke or whatever wave that they're trying to bash about being a conscious person. Consciousness is not an era of our ways or our being. It's actually a coming to, and it's a place of arrival in which you deserve the peace that you receive from arriving to your own consciousness. And I feel like when we receive understanding our consciousness, it's simply understanding and being aware of the self spirit, the higher self. Because who we are physically and living in our carnal mind is one thing, but it's a lot more to us. And it's like, once we're able to really see the depths and the layers of ourselves, it's almost like how it was when I was in my self-parenting season last year, for example. I took the whole summer to be a parent to myself, not just to heal from the loss of, having lost a child and lost the opportunity of having the child, and, making the decision to even walk into an abortion clinic, to even think about getting rid of a child, and then to even, start the process. Those things are things that can be on your that was on my conscience. And so I needed to really think about how I was feeling and why I was feeling that way at that time. And then also where I was being selfish, not just with the fact that I felt like I wasn't ready and so on and so forth, but also about the other person. Because when having a child, it's not just about you, it's about another person. So making a decision with someone to get, an abortion is different from literally just doing what you want to do to keep the child if the other person's not ready, or to get rid of the child knowing that the other person may have wanted the child. And it's just so much to it, where I feel like there shouldn't be freedom taken away from people to make a decision, only because I know that there are people who go through, rape and, molestation, traumatizing situations in which a child was reproduced, and it's just a lot of reasons why people make that decision. I can't speak for another person who makes that decision based on something more traumatic, but for myself, I was just not in the right mindset. I had a lot of other things going on with myself, in which even today, I'm very thankful that I've come to a place of peace with myself and the decisions that I've made before this moment, before age 29, because had I not taken the time to really evaluate myself, I wouldn't see the error of my ways, and the fact that, I made a lazy decision, or I could have been more understanding of my situation or to myself, instead of being so abusive to myself the way I was, so fearful of what is to be next and fearful of the unknown. And that's somewhere I had to become peaceful with as well. It's just being okay with not knowing everything that's going to happen next, and not knowing whether or not my plans are going to prevail. I mean, even with the marriage thing, it's not that I wanted everything to be perfect, but I had always had a fairy tale. I always wrote how I wanted things to be. And it doesn't mean that I expected it to be that way, but I anticipate that every individual wants some form of understanding when they get into a relationship. They want some form of stability, peace. It's certain things that are just common sense. Even if you're a person who's free-spirited and want to travel in your relationship, I'm interested in that kind of stuff. But it's like, if a person isn't able to do the most bare minimum things that are unconditionally needed, such as communicate. If a person can't communicate, how can we ever evolve into anything if we don't talk? If we don't necessarily verbally talk, but not even recognize if we're connecting on a soul level or spiritual level, how can we evolve together? How can we evolve together if we're not even recognizing where we're not evolving with ourselves individually? Because sometimes I notice I may be evolving in one area of my life or one mindset of my life, but then I'm stagnant in another mindset or area of my life. So I'm not trying to ramble on, but like I said, the main things I'm discussing right now are self journeys of self-judgment, self-decluttering, and self-worth. So I just kind of more so was talking about the self-judgment and how it's more critical than self-evaluation, because self-evaluation is not just... So self-evaluation is more like evaluating yourself, but other things around you and what you allow outside of yourself into your space. And then self-judgment is more like critically about you judging yourself in every way thinkable, even from the ways and points of views that you could think people could look at you. Even though we may be very wrapped up in our ego, it allows you to kind of break down those layers of your ego and say, okay, did I say that mean to that person, or was I rude, or was, it's okay to sometimes be consciously aware of how you speak to others. Some people aren't able to reach that point though, and some people don't care. But those who do, they're choosing that consciousness because they understand how it can really break you down when you don't allow your heart to unharden from whatever pain has kept you bound to believing that you have to respond to everything so harsh and so negatively. That can create I hate to say it, but it can create like a stroke, a heart attack. Like, just creating health issues comes from the lack of self-care of our own spirit. Our own energy needs us at all times. So when dealing with other people, yes, it's important to evaluate others, but it's first important to self-judge. Because once you self-judge and you allow yourself to feel your emotions, that matters. And, back to Miss Queen Ali and Mr. Samuels and how they speak about women and our inability to be more tender to the emotions of men. And I do feel as though it's necessary for women to allow men to have their emotions, to have their pain, and to speak as much as they want to on it, as much as we think we're meant to speak on it. I feel like it's a generational cycle or curse to keep abusing men to believe that they shouldn't have sensitivities or they shouldn't be, heard about their emotions. A man should be able to express his emotions on an equal playing field as a woman. Just like a woman wants equality in the workforce, men probably want equality when it comes to relationships with their emotions. The man shouldn't always be the one to have to swallow the pill and let the woman just be the only one with emotions every time a relationship occurs. Like, he should be able to speak as well on the behalf of how he feels, so that he doesn't create a burden, some knot in his heart, because he was raised to believe that love is only something that he's supposed to give and not be given, or that the type of emotional love that he's desiring is not what he deserves because he's a man. Like, every human deserves pure love in ways that we are seeking it outside of ourselves, but it has to begin with ourselves. And that's not selfish. That is simply becoming whole. That is building a foundation in which you can literally allow yourself to build on, so that when someone else is coming into your life, you naturally and genuinely know how to give it back to them. And it doesn't bother you when you meet someone who may not understand the love that you're giving them, or they may not even understand the love you give yourself. Those kind of people, I like to challenge myself with keeping the energetic field of love around me, even around people who just want to force that hate. I just try to keep my energy as much as I can, because of the fact that it's a projection that's not mine. If you go out of the house, and I'm giving an example right now, if you go out of the house with a good intention, you've spoken your affirmations to yourself, you were kind to yourself in the words that you gave yourself, and you even had possibly taken the night before to self-judge just because. When you go outside, or even when you wake up next to somebody who may not be in such the good mood that you are when you open your eyes, realize that you can't forget the energy that you just set for yourself. The energy that you set for yourself before you step out of your body in the morning is yours, and you have to own that, so that when you walk around others or when you share that with others, you don't allow them to exchange whatever energy they have with you, or transmute your energy into the dark energy that they may be carrying that day, or the negativity that they may be harboring over themselves for something that you may not even be aware of. And it really is that a person has to kind of work through their layers. And it's necessary sometimes to tell a person, maybe you should take some time, and maybe I should take some time. It doesn't always have to result in divorce per se, but give time to yourself, and then naturally it needs to be given to the other people. But I like to, if I separate myself from people, let them know why I'm doing it. Like, I'm not just saying that I want to take time to myself because I'm being selfish. But if you want to call it that, sure, maybe I am. But I deserve time for myself. And there's nothing wrong with telling somebody, hey, I'm gonna take this day to myself. But when it comes to relationships, I've noticed, over the years, another thing that stops us from doing that is we get caught up in the relationship so much that we lose ourselves in the relationship. And then we're so dependent and codependent on this person for energy that we need to be still supplying for ourselves. You cannot lose sight of who you are within a relationship. You're going to evolve more of who you are naturally, but you don't want to forget that you were whole and that person was whole, more than likely, if you reaches something as far as marriage, for instance. But once you start to intertwine and become, the merging essence of a man and woman, or, whatever sexuality you are going and direction you are going, understand that when you merge with the person that you're choosing to merge with, you have to give each other the time to remember, oh, you don't really like this, but do you want to try it? But don't ever force who you are, is what I'm saying, on any person. And allow yourself to get to know other people for who they are and love them for who they are. The same way you have learned to love yourself for who you are, no matter your flaws. Because the thing about it too with flaws, like, you may look at a flaw and be like, oh, I hate this about myself. But that's your personal thing that you have with yourself. That's your business with yourself. In a relationship. And that's how you go with unity. Like, you unify with your mind and your heart. And you allow your heart to unharden by understanding your thoughts, by understanding your emotions, by understanding your feelings. Like, I hate to say it, Mr. Samuel said you can't have friends, men aren't your friend. But I'm like, I feel as though we can all have associations with one another on a friend level, because the first friend that we have really is ourself, our higher consciousness, the invisible energy that we're taught to believe and understand is our best friend, because that is a part of who we are. And once we are learning who we are, we learn the most of who we are as children. And a lot of people in here who are parents probably know and understand what I mean. If you have very innovative children or imaginative children, or you just have children who ask you a lot of questions or always want to go and do things a certain way, like, pay attention to the innocence and the freedom of children and how their playful energy, it just reminds you of a part of you that we grow and we become adults and we forget that that part of us still is there. The past is not meant to be buried and forgotten. It's a part of our evolution. So like I said, when it comes to self-decluttering, I'm not erasing anything about my life. I just am deleting and giving away things after I cleanse from them. And I allow myself to make more space for new energy to come into my life. I'm not erasing people from my life like they never existed. I'm not acting like things didn't happen before. I'm not going to act like I didn't just, contact one of my most recent, ex and curse him out because of something that I was reminded of that I didn't get to curse him out for. That's saying I was right or wrong for it. But the point is, I'm in a phase of healing. And I told him from the jump, you should definitely ignore me because I am in a phase of healing. This is a time where I want to be with myself, and not because I don't love you or I don't want to give you attention, but that's not where I am right now. That's not where I am right now. And if a person loves you, they will understand that you are trying to evolve into your next cycle of life, or you're trying to evolve into your next phase, or you're trying to evolve into more of who you are and who you're becoming, because we're constantly able to evolve. Some people just choose to stay stagnant. And speaking of self-worth, I was talking to a person who is in the program I'm in for transitional housing, and he's about 20 to 30 years older than me. But we were just talking about different types of things going on in the world when it comes to, relationships, and people just kind of like coming out of nowhere, being honest about their truth and just how they feel about things, and just putting their foot down about incidents that have occurred in their life or with somebody that they're with, in which they want to get out of, they want to escape. And it's nothing like escaping the world to revisit yourself. And we were just speaking on the behalf, he was speaking on the behalf of feeling as though a person should just know that a person doesn't love them. And I said that a person should just be truthful from jump about who they are and what their intentions are. Why get into a relationship with someone and then you're not intending on being truthful and honest with them? You're not intending on being very communicable and trying to understand them. At that point, if it bothers you that a person is doing that for themselves, that means that you need to be doing that for yourself. But if you are evolved to that point where you understand what healing takes, and you're with someone who has not been able to have the time to do that for themselves, I feel as though it is selfish to not allow that person the space that they need to cleanse themselves in the ways that they are addressing you. That's just like, if you can't tell that a person had a bad day, or that something happened with them and someone else or another situation, and they're projecting it onto you, you should be able and not fearful. They shouldn't be abusive to you. So you should be able to tell them, hey, I had a good day today. That energy you bringing over here, that didn't have anything to do with me. It's okay for us to talk about your day, but don't talk at me today. You get what I'm saying? Like, don't go home and literally treat the person you are with on a daily basis like trash because of something that you dealt with outside. Leave that at the door. That's what my father used to tell me. Like, whatever you got going on out there, don't bring that in here. We don't have nothing to do with what's going on outside. What you had going on today outside had nothing to do with us. Now, one thing I will say is okay to talk about it. Just choose to direct the energy towards venting, but not attacking the people you love because you're going through something outside of the house, or because you're going through something internally. That's the time where we have to not run from ourselves and not throw our trash on others, but literally go through our layers, go through our own emotions, go through understanding why we feel a certain way about certain subjects. Because unconditional love is meaning that we understand the pain, the pressure, and the emotions that we've had, and we're able and capable of understanding things outside of ourselves that we may have never experienced, because we understand how to have emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is very important. So when it comes to the time of self-judgment, that's how you gain emotional intelligence, because you're able to really allow yourself to feel the pain of whatever it is that you're hurting by, to be a negative Nancy all the time. It is truly a choice, is what I'm saying, to have a hardened heart and to address things with hate or with disdain or with a negative response. And when I say negative, I mean how we speak to people matters. Not everybody is receptive of a conversation with someone when that person is always spewing out words that are like our words are like weapons. So it's like, if you're spewing out words to get a point across to me in a way that's negative or that is seemingly abusive, then I can see how it can be offensive to a person, and for that person not to receive whatever it is you're saying because of how you're talking to them. And I know this too based on how I've talked to people before. And one thing I also know is that I like to ask questions before I assume. And what I noticed is that a lot of people don't like being questioned. But the thing is, if a person doesn't like being questioned, then their lack of being able to communicate is going to be very broad, and it's going to be very prominent. And that's why I separate myself a lot from people, because if I ask you a question and you show me that obviously you are not able to be honest, it's going to come from how you respond, with the type of energy you respond with. If it's a personal question, that's one thing. It's another thing to have an attitude and just answer my question with a question. Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, it's kind of like a thing I'm still working on, but yeah, with the great energy, you said I have really great energy and communication skills. Thank you, Hodge. And I'm really working on that because I want to be able to talk to people more in ways where they understand it, but not as if I'm trying to teach something. I'm not trying to teach anything in a way where it's not already understood. We as people know and understand our emotions, but sometimes we don't understand them. We just know that we have them. And that was something that I needed to grow to understand too more about myself, is that I have emotions that were unresolved. And I was trying to get to a point where I was balancing my emotions and giving myself the opportunity. Thank you for the love. Giving myself the opportunity to feel my emotions is what I'm saying. But I'm a woman, so I really wanted to address, like I said, men, because men are deserving of feeling their emotions, being heard, being understood, and being listened to. And cooperation does matter in a relationship, in friendships, in any type of familial situation. The men just need to be heard. And this is what I'm understanding. And this is what I will always allow myself to be, the type of woman who I've always been this way, but just continuing to be the type of woman who is willing to be submissive, not to be abused, because I've been abused before too for my kindness. And my kindness has been taken for a weakness. But what I realized is that I needed to come back to me and to be in love with me again, and to revamp my energy again and come back to who I am again, because I should not have allowed those people to abuse me and my kindness for such long periods. But men shouldn't do that either. You shouldn't allow someone to just, because they're in their emotions or they're going through something mentally, you shouldn't let yourself be the punching bag. no person in any sexuality, any disposition you're in, gender, whether it be in the workplace, relationships, friendships, don't let yourself be the punching bag. It's one thing to be the friend that allows your friend to vent. It's another thing to be a sponge and absorb all of the burdens and the sadness of your friends or the people you love. And it's a worser thing to be the punching bag in which you allow anything and anyone to take out their uncontrolled emotions on you, rather than forcing them to be with themselves so that they can figure it out. And that matters. Some people can be selfish also in a way where they are overexerting or over abusing and misusing their love. And what I mean by that is, if a person is wanting to leave in a relationship, and then the other person is so codependent on the love that they have and receive from that person, it almost can make the person who is one with themselves, or even the narcissist in the relationship, feel crowded, because a narcissist is just as emotional as an empath. A narcissist is just a person who is more sensitive, but for themselves on a regular basis. That's their leadership attribute. They are always considering their own emotions and their own sensitivities and feelings first. I feel as though that's a strength of a narcissist, because you can't make sound decisions for a group if you're always thinking about the group too much and incapable of thinking about yourself first. You have to be able to know and understand yourself and your own actions and movements before you can make any decisions for an entire group of people. But at the same time, I feel as though empathic people are even more better leaders, because they can think so far out of the box and from so many different angles, and which is like, you just have to learn how to control your emotions and your emotional response to things. Because when you allow too many of the emotions around you to dictate how you make decisions, you can't really make a sound decision. So I hope that makes sense on my rationale when it comes to narcissists and empaths. But empaths are not people who are as sensitive of their own emotions as they are for others. And the narcissist is more sensitive for their own emotions than they are for others. So I feel as though those two people can be just as successful in a relationship as people who are one and the same. But I feel like a narcissist and an empath, if consciously aware of who they are and their energy, can come to a point where they are very well balanced in a very good relationship. Because I feel like a lot of women just are naturally empathic, and a lot of men are naturally narcissistic, because men are typically competitive, hardworking, and are kind of groomed to believe that their emotions are not, are dismissible, or that their emotions are not as important or of as much value as a woman's. I do feel as though men should not function and make decisions off of their emotions, but I also feel like women shouldn't either. I feel like nobody should make decisions off of their emotions, because our emotions kind of cloud our true judgment of entire situations. So when we're in our emotions and kind of caught up in them, I do feel like we need to give ourselves time to just be away from the situation or the people and things that are crowding us, or that we feel like are a burden to us. I know I rushfully asked for, separation from relationships, and I ran from them. I was like that one video where the girl was like, what she say? I seen it on here one day. I'm getting on your nerves. Pew. Yeah, that's me. I'm like, look, the minute you show me any energy of you got an issue, goodbye. I go outside, I go to a hotel, be there for as long as I feel like I got to be away. But that's the type of thing where I would beat myself up about taking my time away, because the person would end up cheating on me or lying to me about it, being dishonest, becoming vindictive, instead of just understanding that I was in my emotions and I needed time away because you were choosing to be dishonest. Now, I'm the type of person that I'll stay if a person is willing to talk, is willing to be truthful and be fully honest about their feelings. But I've dealt with a lot of narcissistic men, so they were always like, kind of like, what you call it? I would be giving my emotions and speaking about how I'm feeling, and I would just be like talking to mid-air. I wouldn't have a human in front of me. It'd be like a person just sitting there looking at me like, why are you talking about your emotions? And then I'm sitting there crying and drenched in tears and pain and hurting and wanting to understand why this person is lying to my face, why this person put their hands on me, why this person slept with someone else and then keeps leaving the house when we're not even working on our own relationship. And I realized that I was allowing myself to be too absorbed in the people I was in relationships with. And I said, that would never happen again, because I set boundaries for myself. I started to begin to, in my self journeys and in healing, I had to really allow myself to see my worth more. And that leads me to my concluding portion of of self journeys, which is the self-worth portion. And the self-worth portion is simply, because I don't want to tie up the lines too much. But self-worth is everything that we can think of when it comes to how we think a person outside of ourselves should be in our lives. Like, the self-worth part of ourselves is, what is good for me? And am I good to what I'm giving my time to? Am I good enough for myself? Once you understand that you love yourself unconditionally, that's not even a question to you. But for a lot of empathic people and sensitive people, we're not the type of people who are in our ego. So although we love ourselves and we know our worth, we're not egoistic about it, because we don't have to be that way. Like, we know our greatness is there. But one thing I noticed is that we don't really recognize the hate, the envy, and the jealousy that can come from others because of the peace and the tranquility that we've had. And people want to get to us, want to get under our skin. There are people who go years in a relationship with someone and not truly love them for who they are, but they'll love them and then prove to them that they were just with them for a dream that they had, and accuse them of being the issue, when in reality, that person never really looked at where they were the issue, where they weren't honest enough with that person about the fact that they didn't have the same emotions. That's why a lot of people end up in a relationship where it's so lopsided, because they're with somebody who is not as selfish as they are. They're with somebody who is constantly giving and giving and giving, and they're just a taker. They're just a person who takes from that person's love. So they constantly drain that person for years on end from their love and from their peace. And then they don't even give them the truth about the fact that they were never intending to love them in the same way, or that they were never intending to meet them halfway, or they were never intending to believe that it was even necessary. And that's what, me and, my older friend was talking about, is he was just like, people are stupid if they stay in a relationship where they feel like they're if you feel like you might not be getting enough, then leave. And I was just like, well, a lot of people don't get in a relationship because they feel like that a person has to do everything for them. Some people really genuinely love the person for who they are, and they just wish that person would love them the same. But that person is constantly, still in love with their past, or that person is still seeking something outside of what you're offering them. And that's where the self-worth comes in for both people, because the person who is allowing themselves to stay in a relationship with someone who is proving to them that they do not love them in the same way, what else do you need for you to understand that you are draining yourself to prove yourself to someone who who does not even care about that? They don't care about the unconditional love that you're giving to them. Sugar butt, aka Puda Peach. I love that. How you doing? But yeah, that's the whole ideal, is just the self-worth part is just about like really recognizing what you deserve for yourself and not feeling like you're wrong for that. You're not wrong for recognizing that you deserve more than what you feel like you're being given. And like I said, once again, communication. You should be able and not fearful of talking to the person or the friend or the family member that you're dealing with about how you are feeling, and get an honest ear and cooperative response. And that's how you know and can discern if you're dealing with the person who's conscious as well. Because if you're dealing with someone who's really wrapped up in their emotions, or buried under their emotions and their own trauma, they're not going to be able to hear anything you're saying about your emotions, because they haven't even taken the time to evaluate their own emotions. So what makes you think they would have any time of day to give you the energy to listen to your emotions and let alone understand them? That's why it is important to have that stability of yourself. That is why I speak about self-journey so much, not just to throw out self-love, not to just force that down your throat, but to tell you that at the end of the day, you are deserving of the love that you desire and seek outside of yourself. And to the men who aren't narcissists, and to the men who are, it's important to understand that giving love to yourself does not require giving less to someone else. Hear me clearly, because I know that a lot of people are incapable of multitasking, and it doesn't require multitasking. If you truly, genuinely love yourself in the ways that we're speaking of, and you've learned what unconditional love is and means to you, and you know exactly how you like to feel and be loved, but you are deserving of taking the time to recognize who you are enough to say, I desire and deserve to be loved in this way. You won't allow yourself to settle for less. And you will refuse to be less to anyone else, because you know that they are deserving of more, especially when you know that you deserve more. I'm not telling anybody to leave anybody, because we can do these things together. But what I can say honestly is that when you take the time to really truly get back in tune with yourself, you really find your worth again. Like, you really find the greatness of your being in such a way where it's like, I don't have to settle for constantly chasing something that's always wanting to give me halfway, or always wanting to give me breadcrumbs. Recognize when you're being fed breadcrumbs and it's being called love, or when you're being love bombed and you can tell that it's sarcastic energy behind the love that's being projected onto you. It's not genuine. We can all tell when something is genuine or when something is forced. So that's a big part of self-worth. He said, would I call myself religious or spiritual? I don't label myself just yet with that, but I will tell you that I was born into Christianity. So I went through the whole ritual of being christened as an infant, and then baptized again when I was 6. And then I went through a rededication and baptism after my divorce in 2019. So even though doing all of that, to be honest, my journey consisted of me being more in tune with my spirit. So right now I feel like I'm walking on my spiritual path, because religion was something that I was already acquainted with, as well as just getting in tune with a lot of religions, though. I hope I'm answering your question and not rambling on. But yeah, I was getting in tune with a lot of religions, and up into the end of 2020, I want to say, I was able to really understand more about learning about the spirituality side of things. And not to say I just was completely oblivious to it, but I was always raised to be kind of like fearful of it, of my spirit and of my gifts, and of how we all have gifts, how we're all capable of so many different great things when it comes to our intuition. So once I got in tune with that, I had taken more on the spiritual side of things. It was hard though, because like I said, I come from a place in circles where everyone was more religious. So they didn't really understand what I was doing. But I noticed that I started to attract and gravitate to more spiritual people of different forms. Like some people really like, more dark spirituality than they liked of the light working spirituality. Some people were just more focused on attunement and healing when it came to spirituality. Some people were really focused on the conscious mind and everything about, evolution and us as a people, and the thing about generational cycles and curses. I noticed religion and spirituality seem to have so many literal similarities, because to me it all ties in. And that's why I had created the whole self journeys ideal. Not saying that self journeys didn't exist, but I had kind of created my own little walk with these things so that I could understand how to keep and incorporate both of them in my life someday. But right now I do them. I practice them both. Not really practice, but I incorporate them into my day-to-day life because it's a part of my walk. It's a part of my healing. It's how I nurture myself and embrace my higher self, which is my spirit, which is my spiritual body, my soul, if you feel what I'm saying. But but yeah, so once I got to a point, do I pray and meditate? Yeah, I pray and meditate. I do both of them. Yep. So, but I didn't begin to focus on the area of, or the philosophy of religion and spirituality for any other reason first, other than to get more in tune with myself. Because, dreaming too. Dreaming was a big thing for me. So once I started to have my started dreaming again, that's when I started to get into spirituality more, because I started to see some hidden lies in, religion, and looking at how it's so many different separations of the power of the consciousness of God or the consciousness of people. And, even though we can all say there's a one consciousness, I feel like we're all meant to be different. We're all meant to have our individual souls, our individual selves, and that the only other half that is missing from us is our other half, the other half of ourselves. And that's why I really talk about the higher self a lot. So I guess that's spiritual. But I still practice other religions though. Just like this year was my first year trying out, the method of participating in Ramadan. And it was really satisfying for me because I gave myself that opportunity to be more disciplined with my fasting. Because I already do intermittent fasting once a month. But once I started to learn about the religion of Islam and the culture of it, I was able to really see how it was very effective and resourceful for my own growth and my own cleansing, my own healing, as well as just being able to do any practice that involves the power of our spirit. I feel like has been elevating me. It's just been making me just be more of who I am and just embracing even my dark side. When I tell you that shadow work stuff, when it comes to spirituality, since we're on that topic, and I learned about shadow work and how your shadow side can be so it can be kind of demented. It just depends on the person. But for me, I just looked at my shadow side wow, I can really think pretty deep. I can get pretty dark with my thoughts. So everything is all about energy. We all came from a light source. DNA of the Creator is within us. No religion guidance to know your higher self is key. Facts. So that's exactly what I was saying. Thank you for confirming. And that's what I mean by I've been attracting more people like you, like more people who are just spiritually aware of our being and our existence in a simplistic way where it's not so complicated. I do feel like religion separates the power of our consciousness and the power of our being, where it does confuse that whole reality that it's all connected. So, yeah. But I do like, I guess if I have to choose, and today I am more spiritual than I am religious because I don't practice one religion. So, and I am willing to read all types of sources out there to, elevate my understanding of my purpose. Because I do love the higher self of me. I know and have embraced my emotions and my attitude and the things that I got to get over about my past and so forth, right? But I'm still at a phase where I'm trying to raise my consciousness again because I let myself kind of like lower my vibrations again just to see, to do more like cleansing and work on my lower chakras, because there were things I feel like were still kind of like blocking my root chakra a little, and even my sacral. Now I got really in tune with my solar plexus, but it was just like my root chakra, certain things when it came to like fears and stuff that I needed to kind of work through a little bit more. So I allowed myself to just kind of like lower my vibes a little, get back down into my lower spiritual centers and really work through those things. And the midst of it, just learning how to kind of keep my attunement with my higher self, though. So it's been like a cool little practice, if you want to say, like to just allow myself to be free with my spiritual connection with myself, with my higher self. Yeah. But I definitely want to learn more about other people's journey. Like that's really what intrigues me a lot too. Like that's why I talk about self journeys, because I look at it like we all have a journey with ourselves on a day-to-day basis, all day, every day. We with ourselves first and last in this existence that we have. So, I mean, no matter how much we connect with others, it's a must that we are whole with ourselves. So I love hearing about other people's points of views, walks, especially because, I'm very teachable. I'm very much in the studenting phase right now. I don't believe everything that I hear. But, I mean, when you know that you have a certain level of understanding about your intuition, you know what to receive as being a part of what you need to carry on, or what is just being said to you for you to have enlightenment about what goes on. Because every journey is different. We all reach a certain path at a different point. Some at the same time, and then we might meet other people at a different point in our, lives that are in a different part of the mind frame that we're walking into. So I don't know. I just feel like it's always a puzzle, but I feel like a lot of us are trying to reach a certain point, but we're just taking different lanes or different directions to get there. So, but all that to say, I know I've probably been on here for a little while, but I'm going to post this video. I appreciate the interaction. Focus one's in. Definitely would like to have more conversations with you. And just in general, this was just about, like I said, self journeys of the self-judgment, the self-worth, and self-decluttering. So those three things were the topic for this night. I was drawing a little bit, but I just drew what I said I was going to do this weekend, which was a balloon or feather fly for my my child that I would have had in 2017. So I'm going to allow that to be I'm going to do a balloon release, and I'm going to do a piece, which is basically doing art. If I can get to my paintings, I have paint and stuff in my storage, but if I can get to that, the point is I'm gonna do a piece, and where I can be able to design something for my mind in a visual, but not words. To be or master the God in you, one must know that the true and living God is to deal with positive and negative energy, but knowing ourselves is key. That gets enhanced by detoxing, cleansing mind, body, and soul. Yep. on track. I'm on track right with you, Focus on Zen. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I appreciate that, because that's going to be the closing quote for the night. And this is Bree India. I'm hoping you all have a very blessed weekend. Blessed be. And peace and blessings to you and your loved ones. Like I said, happy Mother's Day to you all. And to the men, do not forget to pour a lot of love in yourself and speak up, speak out, and do not fear your feelings or your emotions one bit. You deserve the love that you give. Bree India. Talk to y'all again soon. Bye, and thank you for joining.